This is another view of the trench pieces that TerranScapes has been working on development. A previous video showed the trenches in their earliest mock-up of cutout foam. Here we can see them just prior to sale availability. The trenches are resin cast exteriors with a foam backing, and the trenches feature sandbags, some debris wood on the top of the sand and dirt pile adjacent to them, as well as a aged wood backing with uprights, and the wood, which is a little hard to see, has been scoured to look weathered and aged, with gaps of dirt poking out and boards that are uneven. The pieces are available in a variety of shapes. There are end pieces, there are different forms of corner pieces, there are inside corner pieces as well, and there are different shapes to those as well. This set will probably get additions added to it in terms of various shapes, maybe other lengths of straights, as demand increases for them once they go out for sale. Two interesting features about this set, however, were included based on customer recommendation and request. The customer wanted to use these pieces for World War I gaming, 28mm, and of course Warhammer has recently released a new set of World War I game set rules in the 28mm, so it makes it an excellent time to develop these pieces. World War I trenches did feature a sandbag top as well as wooden siding, although the wooden siding varied quite a bit, with sometimes using twigs woven in between uprights, sometimes using planking such as this, sometimes using hewn logs. I opted for a more formal wood-sided, but aged it significantly so that it really would match with a variety of eras, including World War II, a Civil War, or possibly even sci-fi might be believable for that as well. But two important features that differentiate it from other trench pieces that are available at various terrain making companies is that these trench pieces feature a gradual slope. This is roughly a 3-to-1 slope, and it does allow for models to be placed on it as they storm the trenches, which really is not available in most trenches that you can purchase. Most of them, as well as the previous ones developed by TerranScapes, feature a steep 45-degree angle, which really doesn't look very natural emerging from the table and doesn't allow for models to be placed on it. So this was an important feature that I wanted to include, and seems to work pretty well for models that are of reasonable stability, center of gravity. This is a Sister of Battle from Warhammer 40K, and she sits on that quite easily as they storm the trench. The other feature that is indicative of World War I trenches, and I think is an important feature for any trench warfare, is to be able to have models actually hidden in the trenches. So these trenches stand well over 30mm, and models placed within them are actually hidden from view when placed up against the side of the trench. And since trenches should be affording some measure of protection, seems like that's a logical inclusion and doesn't require generalized believability, what models are viewable, what models are not. How does a model shoot over the trench? Well, in World War I, they included firing platforms in their trenches, and so firing platforms have been developed for this set. Now this is an unpainted firing platform. Unlike the trenches, these platforms are cast in plaster, gypsum plaster. Actually it's Ultra-Cal 30, and so I thought that was a good choice, partly because their small size really doesn't necessitate the resin and the foam. It's not a terribly large piece to cast in plaster. The plaster also is weighted enough to give these a little more stability from being bumped on the table. It's a nice backing. The platforms, let me move these out of the way, allow model to be placed on the firing platform and to see over the top of the sandbags and fire a shoulder-fired weapon. This Sister of Battle is holding a just below shoulder height weapon, and when viewed at a table viewpoint, that barrel just pokes over the sandbag and makes it an excellent excellent modeling for characters firing from a trench with a defensive position. The thing about the firing platforms that I wanted to include was versatility. So the firing platforms will be available in two sizes. One is slightly shorter, and the firing platforms can be snugged up in between the uprights of the sandbag positions so that models can be placed on them. Here's a view from the rear to fire over at different places at different points in the trench set. Some of the pieces feature a slightly shorter width between the uprights, say for this one, for example, and this does not really fit in between those uprights, and so a shorter piece has been provided so that you can snug it in there. So the owner of the trench set can determine where the firing positions are going to be and determine how movement within the trenches are going to operate. Where is there space for models to pass? Where is there space for models to fire from? I really wanted to go with this setup rather than the fixed trench sets that you so often see where the trench edges are mounted on a centerpiece, which determines a fixed width and also determines a fixed layout for the opposite sides. These pieces provide an incredible amount of variety just in the set that has already been produced for laying out trenches. And while there will be probably a slightly higher cost than some other trenches that are available, primarily due to the size of these pieces, because of that slope, I'm really casting a much larger amount of foam backing for the pieces, as well as the resin coating for the outsides. And there's, of course, more to paint. So it will be slightly more expensive than perhaps certainly the previous set that TerranScapes produced, which were the 45-degree angle pieces that were very short. But this, I think, sets an excellent standard for trench warfare, and really, I think, adds an excellent opportunity to have some of the newest rules for Warhammer 40K come into effect. Warhammer 40K's rules recently changed so that there is a true line of sight from model to model, and this makes a very believable cover save for the models, and you can really determine who's within line of sight, who's not, and I think adds a lot of realism when you get down to the model's eye view and you take a look at the set. So this gives you a little preview. This set is not quite yet ready for release, and this video provides yet another opportunity for customers and subscribers to the TerranScapes videos to provide some feedback. Customer input, of course, has driven the development of this set and ultimately would affect, its future development, pieces that could be added to the set, other modifications to perhaps its coloring. I was thinking about doing a slightly flocked edge that fades upward, and I realized that that flocking might not match a lot of tables, and it might be more believable to just leave it as dirt. So I am planning on producing them in pretty much this color set that you see is right now. But of course, if customers have more input or other preferences, I'm welcome to hear them. And of course, don't also forget that if your table has a certain coloring, certain flocking, static grass, you're using Games Workshop static grass, you're using Woodland Scenics flock, that any of those materials could be added to these for very little cost increase to help blend this set into your specific table layout. This is a brief glimpse of how possible layout could look with a few more pieces on the table. So you can see that you can adjust the width of the trenches fairly easily. You can create cutouts to place firing platforms within it to allow plenty of space behind for models to engage in hand-to-hand combat within the trenches or to pass by unobstructed. Of course, you can narrow passages by adding smaller or firing platforms in a variety of places. Firing platforms could be provided on both sides to produce a sort of center trench on the table that would allow for assault from both sides. And with the end pieces, of course, you can create a variety of entry points into the trenches from different sides that really add for a lot of movement versatility and strategic defense, tactical layout and play.